Hello, Americans. Another friend subscribes around the world. Back again, man. This morning, it actually just stopped raining, man. It's so nice out there. I should be out there working, but I kind of got involved since first thing this morning. Not on any of them crazy videos, man. I ain't watching that stuff right now. But, you know, I don't know, a couple days ago, you know, and I talk about it a lot, you know, through the years and refer back to it and tell you a little bit here, a little bit there and all that on my grandpa Hawes, which would be my third great grandpa, you know, that was born in the teepee and, you know, all that, you know. And actually, I talked about years ago, man. I said, I'm going to do me a video on that, you know, on it and stuff. Because I always get a lot of questions, and, man, people telling me, you know, how cool it is, man. 6th generation picture that I'm in and all that. You know, man, obviously I find it very interesting. But I get a lot of questions on it. And then there's some articles, some newspaper articles, and of course, you know, the family pictures and different stuff. But I've been trying to get my hands on the article that he was in on about being in camp when SACAGAWEA died. You know, and that's an article that I'm gonna share with you too. But this one's the 100th birthday party will honor John Hawes on June 15th in Lava, Idaho. And I'm going to read this one. This one just goes into you know, his life, man, and living in a dirt floor cabin and, you know, his French-Canadian dad and Shoshone mom and stuff like that. And then we'll talk a little bit about it afterwards. This is probably a few-part video. This takes a while. And then I'm about to get my goggles on here to read it. And I don't know if I should point the camera at the article or at me. He was born on June 10th, 1869. in the early Idaho settlement of Limhi near Salmon City. This was 21 years before Idaho became a state and 11 years after the Bannock Shoshone Indians attacked the Limhi settlement and drove the settlers off there. His mother was a Shoshone and his father was a French Canadian. George Hawes. His father left the boy, possibly another son, with the mother. Not long after, the mother died, and Joseph Vaness, another French-Canadian and friend of George Hawes, asked the Indian chief Tindoy if he could have the boy to rear. Vaness was granted this request and took the boy from the Indian camp to his cattle ranch. Thus began a second phase of Hawes' life. He remembered his Indian mother and life in the Shoshone camp. Hawes spent the next 10 years of his life on the cattle ranch in the Limhi, Pasomero Valley. His foster father was a bachelor. The two lived in a log cabin, was built with a dirt roof and floor. It measured 16 by 18 feet. Hawes rode the range and grew up with an unusual vigor of mind and body, a jovial, companionable temperament which was characterized by him throughout his life. Many times while riding the herd, he was caught on the range at nightfall. He would use his saddle as a pillow and the hard earth as his bed and his saddle blanket as his cover. He remembers the mule trains and the mule bridges. He remembers driving herds from Granger, Wyoming. From where they were shipped to eastern markets. Freighters from Corrine, Utah, from Salmon, Chalice, Bay Horse, and Bonanza. All had to go through what is now Idaho Falls to cross the Taylor's Bridge over the Snake River. It was a toll bridge, and Idaho Falls was known as Eagle Rock. In about 1884, Vanessa sold his ranch in the, man, I don't know how you pronounce that, Phsimeri, Phasameri Valley, and went to San Francisco, leaving his foster son with friends. Later, Vanessa bought a ranch at Swan Lake and sent for the boy. Haas remembers many things about the Indians, including SACAGAWEA, the bird woman whose girlhood days spent with her people in the Limhi Valley. Chabonneau, husband of SACAGAWEA, was a French Canadian and was like John Haas's father and foster father. At Swan Lake, Haas met and married Clara Quigley. Their children, Harriet, Denny, which is my grandma Denny, Preston, and the late John Haas, Aberdeen, Lucy, Reddington, Clifton, Tom Haas, Downey. After the death of his first wife, Haas married Christine Georgeson. They lived in Blackfoot, Idaho Falls, and Sterling. After her death, he married Marty Helmendaler, who died in 1961. They resided in Downey and where he continued to reside until the past 2 years. He farmed and did carpentry work. That's, man, just holy smokes. And then his three wives, which his first wife, man, I'll share a picture in a minute, with my grandma, hold my grandma with his first wife. And, and she ended up passing away. I can't remember from what, man, the illness is crazy back then. And, and then he married his second wife and third wife. And grandma was teasing him one time, my grandma Joe, which would have been his great grandma, or she would have been, I don't know, it would have been her great grandpa. Anyway, she was teasing him one time, man, and I'm not sure, he was in his 90s, I reckon. And she said, was teasing him about how many times he'd been married and he'd outlived all his wives. And he told her, yeah, and I'd marry me another one if she'd take me. Oh, your grandma always thought that was funny. She always got a kick out of that. But, man, just interesting. I'll click over to here. So this, man, just awesome. Awesome picture. And this, the baby is Harriet, which is my great-great-grandma. And then that's Clara, which is my great-great-great-grandma, Grandpa Hawes. And then my great-grandma, which was Grandma Joe's mom, was actually named after her mom. And then this here, that's my Grandpa Hawes. When he went back, I don't know what year it was. It would have been, man, I'd say early 60s, maybe 50s. But some years ago, when John made the trip back over the country with Glenn Reddington, the cabin was still standing. While riding the range, Grandpa was caught out many nightfalls. Oh, I guess I'd already talked about that. We used a saddle and everything for his bed. But man, great old picture, and it was still standing, man. I was telling Muskrat, man, the other day, I wonder if it's still there. I just love this kind of stuff, and then I'm lucky enough, well, I guess you could say that, for getting these pictures and articles and, them keeping track. I'm definitely lucky enough there, but it's the Mormon thing, which I find pretty interesting, that Grandpa is trying to find where it Man, I've got a file probably this big, you know, and for years I was researching, man, back when it was difficult, man. I used to go to the library and try to find out things, I mean, everything, which now with the internet, you know, it's pretty dang interesting. But the one thing that, you know, so the Mormons, man, keep a lot of that, man. Grandpa, I think it was his, I think it was the second wife, his second or third wife after, you know, outliving him. She was Mormon. That's when he became Mormon. Man, I'd love this article. I'd really love to get a copy of. So this one's, he remembers SACAGAWEA. Perhaps no one has a better right to claim Idaho as his native state than does John Hawes of Downey. Some mystery surrounds his birth and the early life, but some facts he clearly remembers. He was born on June 10th, 1869 at the early Idaho settlement of Limhi near Salmon. There was 21 years before statehood of Idaho, and 11 years after the abandonment of Limhi settlement by a group of Mormon missionaries who were recalled officially to Utah because of an attack by the Bannock. Okay, of course the battery went dead, so I'm going to go back just a little and we'll read that, and then I'm going to skip forward after that. Limhi settlement by a group of Mormon missionaries who were recalled officially to Utah because of an attack by the Bannock and Shoshone Indian. Hawes's mother was a Shoshone Indian and his father a French Canadian by the name of George Hawes, so he was told. His father left the boy and his mother and possibly another brother. He remembers another older brother. The mother died about 5 years after the younger boy was born, and Hawes was left with his mother's people, the Shoshone Indians. Alright, so let's go with the last few paragraphs. He married Marty Hillmandaller 9 years ago. Following his colorful life, he enjoys reminiscing and has a great desire to know more about his own people. Aunt Marty, as she is called, enjoys his reminiscing and listens with interest to his accounts of his early life experiences. Hawes has an alert mind and remembers many things regarding his early life in the Shoshone camp. He says he clearly remembers the Indian modes of burial and how they would take the horses belonging to the Indian, or the horse belonging to the Indian who had died, to the top of the grave to kill it, leaving it there to cover the grave. He claims he remembers SACAGAWEA, the bird woman, whose girlhood days were spent with her tribe in Limhi Valley. What he said he remembers about her is her dying. He said she suffered greatly before her death in an Indian wickiup. He said he remembers the burial rites held for her. Hawes remembers living in a wickiup. He remembers living in the cowboy camps and at the cabin. He remembers the long meerschaum pipes of the cowboys. He remembers picking up newspapers and looking at the picture of the man on its pages and asking the cowboys who it was. They told him it was his father, and that the article was an account of his death at Rathdrum, Idaho. He has been asked if Vaness could have been his father. He answers that he doesn't know. Could George Hawes and Vaness have been the same man? What of the newspaper article? Aunt Marty listens with interest and shares and enjoys the quiet, peaceful life they live here in their modest home. You know, man, I could sit here and just read this different articles and everything I could find over and over, and you know, hopefully this interests you, but it's just amazing, and man, I've taken years You know, some of these articles and stuff, you know, I had copies of or whatever. I have a big old file of stuff that I've found out, you know, for years, man. I'm talking back into my 20s, you know, the last 30 years, 30 plus years I've been trying to find out, you know. Grandma Joe just knew a little bit, you know, because her and Grandpa, I think she got married, I think she was 15, so she was pretty young. All these things, man. You start thinking about all these things that pretty dang amazing, man. So that's there's a little bit more of the history stuff on this picture here, man. This is one of my favorites. This one I gotta get printed off. Dang cool. Old dog. Grandpa. Not sure who the women are. I showed them to Grandma and she didn't know who they were either. The one, she's kind of blurry. Just interesting stuff, man. I thought I'd share that with you. That's kind of where I'm at, where my, you know, on this rainy day, I need to go out and do something now. But, man, I could sit, you know, go through the things all day. So we'll see, you know, keep chugging at it. You know, the one thing, you know, looking him up, man, in the list for his mom, all it says is a Shoshone Indian woman. Man, no name, so we don't even know what would have been my fourth great-grandparents, and we don't even know what her name is. Pretty sad. That's the way the things were back then. That's it, man. So hope you enjoyed this a little bit different video, and just sharing. I guess it would be history, man. That's before Idaho history. Pretty dang cool. Good Lord willing, them creeks don't rise. Sorry, I've been eating peanuts, man. We'll be back again tomorrow. See ya.